Grace Palmer slammed her Honda's steering wheel when she saw someone had taken her parking spot again. The one piece of predictability in her chaotic life as a pediatric nurse working 12-hour shifts at St. Catherine's Hospital. For 3 months straight, she had parked in the same spot in her apartment building's garage. Row C, space 14. It was close to the elevator, well lit, and became hers through the unspoken rules of routine. Then suddenly, 2 weeks ago, a sleek black Mercedes started appearing there every single day before she returned home from her evening shift. The owner would leave before she headed to work in the morning, so the spot was always empty when she left at 6:30. But when she dragged herself home at 9, exhausted and starving, her spot was occupied. Grace circled the garage twice before finding a space on the 4th level, far from everything, poorly lit and giving her the creeps. She grabbed her purse and the leftover Chinese food container she had never gotten around to eating during her break, then trudged toward the distant elevator. Her feet ached. A 6-year-old had thrown up on her shoes. She had held the hand of a terrified mother while doctors worked on her daughter. She had administered 17 different medications, changed countless IVs, and smiled through it all because that was what the kids needed to see. Now she just wanted to collapse. The elevator ride gave her time to fume. She had checked the building regulations. The garage spots were first come, first served for tenants. But this felt personal now. Whoever owned that Mercedes had disrupted her entire routine. When she finally reached her small one-bedroom apartment on the 8th floor, Grace kicked off her shoes and fell face first onto her couch. Her roommate Tessa was working the night shift at the restaurant downtown, so the apartment was quiet. Grace loved Tessa, but right now she appreciated the silence. She heated up her Chinese food and ate it standing over the sink, too tired to bother with plates. Then she showered, washing away the hospital smell that clung to her skin and hair, and climbed into bed. Tomorrow, she decided, she would leave a note on that Mercedes. Polite but firm. Except the next morning when Grace left for her shift, the spot was empty as usual, and she had no paper in her car. By the time she remembered that evening, sure enough, the Mercedes was back. This pattern continued for 3 more days. Grace's frustration mounted with each evening she spent hunting for parking. She started leaving 5 minutes earlier in the morning, hoping to catch the Mercedes owner, but the car was always gone. She came home 5 minutes earlier when she could, but the Mercedes was always there first. On Thursday evening, Grace had finally had enough. She parked on the 4th level again, but this time she marched down to row C with a notepad from her purse. She would leave a message on that windshield. But as she approached space 14, she noticed something odd. There was already a note tucked under the Mercedes's wiper blade. Grace glanced around the empty garage, then stepped closer. The note was written on expensive-looking cardstock in neat handwriting. She should not read someone else's note. She absolutely should not. Grace read it anyway. Spot still available on level 2, row A, space 8, closer to elevator. Grace frowned. Was someone else annoyed with this Mercedes owner too? But then why suggest an alternative spot instead of demanding this one back? Curiosity got the better of her. She took the elevator to level 2 and found row A. Space 8 was indeed open, and it was even closer to the elevator than her old spot. But that was not the point. The point was principle. Still, the next evening, Grace decided to try the suggested spot. Maybe whoever left that note knew something she did not. Maybe space 8 was always available. She got home at her usual time and headed straight to level 2. Space 8 was open. She parked, gathered her things, and walked to the elevator. The distance was noticeably shorter. The lighting was better too. Grace felt conflicted. She appreciated the upgrade, but she also felt manipulated somehow. The Mercedes was still in her original spot. She checked as she walked past row C on her way to the stairs. Some petty part of her wanted to leave a sarcastic thank you note, but exhaustion won. This continued for another week. Grace parked in space 8. The Mercedes stayed in space 14. Life moved on. Then on a Tuesday evening, Grace came home to find a different note on her windshield. Her heart jumped. This felt invasive now. Someone was tracking her movements. The note read, "Hope the new spot works better. Sorry for the inconvenience." Grace stood in the garage holding the note, unsure whether to feel grateful or unnerved. The handwriting was confident, the message polite, and whoever this person was, they were clearly aware they had displaced her. She decided to respond. She pulled out her own notepad and wrote, "The spot is fine, but why did you need mine?" She walked to row C and placed the note under the Mercedes's wiper blade, feeling slightly ridiculous. She was passing notes in a parking garage like a middle schooler. The next evening, there was a response waiting on her windshield. Needed to be close to the elevator for work schedule. Noticed you worked evenings, figured we could both win. Grace read the note 3 times. The logic was sound. Their schedules were opposite, which is why she never saw this person. But something about the phrasing intrigued her. Both win suggested someone who thought strategically, and the quality of the cardstock combined with the Mercedes suggested money. She wrote back that evening, "Fair enough." Truce accepted. She expected that to be the end of it. Instead, the notes continued. "How was your day?" Appeared on her windshield Thursday evening. Grace surprised herself by responding, "Long, pediatric nursing. Respect. I could never do that. Business meetings all day." What kind of business? Import/export. Boring stuff. You save lives. I move products. Grace smiled despite herself. Something about this anonymous correspondence felt safe. She could be honest without the pressure of face-to-face interaction. Not all heroic. Lots of vomit involved. Even more respect. I faint at blood. The notes became a routine. Every few days, a new message would appear. They kept them brief, never too personal, but Grace found herself looking forward to them. It was nice to have someone acknowledge her existence beyond her role as a nurse. What made you choose nursing? Grace sat in her car for a long moment before responding to that one. She wrote, "My little brother was sick as a kid. The nurses made him feel brave. Wanted to do that for other kids." The next note took 2 days to arrive, and it was longer than usual. "That is genuinely beautiful. The world needs more people like you. Is your brother okay now? Healthy and annoying me regularly. Thanks for asking. 3 weeks passed." The notes covered everything from favorite foods to opinions on the building's new management policy on package deliveries. Grace learned that drank too much coffee, worked unreasonable hours, and had a dry sense of humor that translated well to written messages. Learned that Grace had a roommate named Tessa, loved terrible reality TV as a guilty pleasure, and was saving money to eventually go back to school for her nurse practitioner license. Grace mentioned the notes to Tessa one evening over leftover pizza. "Wait, you are having a correspondence with some mystery person in the parking garage." Tessa's eyes widened. "Grace, that is either the most romantic thing I have ever heard or the setup for a true crime documentary." "It is not romantic, it is just friendly. He is leaving you notes. Regularly. You are telling him personal things." "I do not even know if it is a he." Tessa gave her a look. "You said the Mercedes is a masculine car. Cars are not gendered. And you said the handwriting seems masculine." "I did not say that. You implied it, and you are blushing right now." Grace threw a pillow at her. "I am not blushing. I am flushed from the hot pizza." But Tessa was right, of course. Grace had been assuming it was a man, and she had been looking forward to the notes more than she wanted to admit. She had even started taking extra care with her appearance lately, which made no logical sense since she never actually saw this person. The next note from a caught her off guard. Random question. Do you ever wish you could meet the people you connect with, or is the mystery better? Grace sat in her car with the note in her lap for 10 minutes. This felt like a shift, a turning point. She could deflect, keep things light, or she could be honest, she wrote. Maybe both. The mystery is nice, no pressure, but yes, I wonder sometimes. She almost crumpled the note and wrote something else, something safer. But she left it on the Mercedes windshield and went upstairs with her heart beating faster than it should. 2 days passed with no response. Grace tried not to feel disappointed. She told herself she had probably scared her off by being too honest. The notes had been fun while they lasted. Then on Saturday evening, when Grace had the rare weekend shift, she found a note that made her breath catch. I wonder all the time. 4 words. That was all it took to make Grace's chest feel tight with possibility. She wrote back. So what do we do about that? The response came the next day. Coffee, neutral location, no pressure, only if you want to. Grace stared at the note in her hand. This was crazy. She had been leaving notes for a stranger in a parking garage for over a month. She knew nothing concrete about this person, except that they drove a Mercedes, worked in import/export, and had gradually become the best part of her day. Tessa's true crime warning echoed in her head. But so did the memory of every thoughtful note, every question that showed she actually listened, every moment of unexpected connection. She wrote. Okay. When and where? They arranged to meet Sunday afternoon at a coffee shop called Brood Awakening, halfway between the apartment building and downtown. It was public, well populated, and Grace told Tessa exactly where she would be and when. She also promised to text every 30 minutes. Grace changed outfits 4 times Sunday morning. She wanted to look nice but not like she was trying too hard. She settled on jeans and a soft green sweater that Tessa said brought out her eyes. She left her dark blonde hair down and applied minimal makeup. You look perfect, Tessa assured her. But take pepper spray just in case. You are not helping. I am absolutely helping. Go meet your mystery man. Text me immediately if he is weird. Grace arrived at Brood Awakening 15 minutes early. She ordered a latte to calm her nerves and found a table near the window where she could see people arriving. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Running 5 minutes late. Sorry, parking was nightmare. So I had her number now. They had exchanged them in the final notes to coordinate the meeting. Grace had saved the contact as parking garage, which Tessa found hilarious. Grace sipped her latte and watched the door. She had no idea what to expect. Tall, short, old, young. The Mercedes suggested some wealth, but that could mean anything. When the door opened and a man walked in, scanning the room, Grace's heart did something complicated in her chest. He was tall, probably 6'2", with dark hair that looked like he had run his hands through it repeatedly. He wore dark jeans and a charcoal sweater that fit him well enough to suggest the body underneath was worth the price of tailoring. His face was striking rather than classically handsome, with strong features and a jawline that could cut glass. He looked stressed and tired and slightly nervous, which somehow made him more attractive. His eyes found her and recognition flashed across his face. He walked over and Grace realized she had stood up without deciding to. Grace. His voice was deep, a little rough. She managed. Adrian. Adrian Chase. He extended his hand and she shook it. His grip was warm and firm. Sorry I am late. I swear I am not usually late. It is fine, I was early. Grace sat back down before her knees could give out. Adrian Chase. Even his full name sounded expensive. He ordered a black coffee and returned to the table, folding his tall frame into the chair across from her. Up close, she could see faint lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled often, though he looked nervous now. "This is surreal," he said. "I have been imagining this for weeks." "Me too," Grace admitted. "I thought you might be 70 years old." Adrian laughed, and the sound transformed his face. "I thought you might be 60 and terrifying." "Why terrifying?" Your note about the vomit was very matter-of-fact. It suggested you had seen some things. Grace found herself relaxing. "I have seen many things. Most of them involve bodily fluids." "See that right there? Terrifying. I respect it, but terrifying." They talked easily, the conversation flowing like their notes had, but better because she could see his expressions and hear his laugh. Grace learned that Adrian was 32, had built his import business from the ground up starting at 24, and worked hours that made her nursing shifts look reasonable. "So why did you really need that parking spot?" Grace asked. "The truth this time." Adrian had the grace to look sheepish. "Honestly, I had been parking on level 4 because I got home late and everything else was full. Then I started coming home earlier for a while because of some family stuff, and row C was always open. I did not realize I was taking someone's spot until I saw you circle the garage 3 times one night looking increasingly homicidal. You saw me. I was walking to my car to grab something I forgot. You looked like you wanted to murder someone. I felt terrible. Why did you not just give the spot back? I tried to give you something better. Was that presumptuous?" Grace considered. "Yes, but it worked out." Adrian's smile was relieved. "The notes were my way of apologizing without making it awkward, and then they became not about the parking spot." "No," he agreed quietly, "they became about you." The coffee shop faded around them. Grace felt her face flush. "What do you mean?" "I mean I looked forward to your notes more than anything else in my day. I mean I started coming home at specific times hoping to catch a glimpse of you, even though that makes me sound like a stalker. I mean I have been thinking about you constantly for weeks, and I was terrified you would be disappointed when you met me in person." Grace's heart hammered against her ribs. "I am not disappointed. No, not even a little bit." Adrian's expression shifted into something warm and intense that made Grace's stomach flip. "Good, because I have a confession." "What?" "I know the building manager. I could have gotten my own assigned spot anytime. I kept parking in row C because it meant I got to keep writing to you." Grace should have been annoyed. Instead, she felt a smile spreading across her face. "That is manipulative." "It absolutely is. I apologize." "I do not accept your apology." Adrian looked stricken for a moment before he registered her teasing tone. "You are mean. You stole my parking spot. I gave you a better one. After you stole mine. Are we going to argue about this forever?" Grace pretended to consider. "Maybe." They stayed in the coffee shop for 3 hours. The staff started giving them pointed looks when the late afternoon crowd arrived and seating became scarce, so they reluctantly left. "Can I walk you to your car?" Adrian asked. They had both parked in the public lot 2 blocks away. As they walked, their hands kept brushing together, sending electric shocks up Grace's arm. Finally, Adrian caught her hand and laced their fingers together. It felt natural, like they had been doing this for years instead of meeting an hour ago. "This is going to sound crazy," Adrian said as they reached the parking lot. "But I do not want this to end. Can I see you again, soon?" "How soon?" "Tomorrow." Grace thought about her schedule. "I work until 9. I will wait. We can get dinner after, something open late." "You are serious?" "Completely." Grace studied his face. The nervousness was back, mixed with hope and something deeper that made her chest ache. "Okay." The relief and joy that flooded Adrian's expression made her glad she had said yes. "Okay, tomorrow I will text you." They stood by her car, neither wanting to leave. Finally, Adrian squeezed her hand and stepped back. "Drive safe, Grace Palmer." "You too, Adrian Chase." Grace drove home in a daze. She found Tessa pacing the apartment, phone in hand. "You were supposed to text me every 30 minutes, sorry." "I got distracted." "Distracted by what?" "Oh no." "Oh Grace, that look on your face. What happened?" Grace sank onto the couch. "Tessa, I think I am in trouble." "Good trouble or bad trouble? I do not know yet, but he is amazing and we are seeing each other tomorrow." Tessa squealed and demanded every detail, which Grace provided while still feeling like she was floating somewhere outside her body. This morning, she had been nervous about meeting a stranger. Tonight, she was falling for someone who already knew her better than people she had known for years. Adrian texted her an hour later. "Thanks for giving me a chance. I promise I am not always this intense. Actually, that is a lie. I am always this intense. Fair warning." Grace wrote back, "Noted, I am never this impulsive. Actually, that is also a lie. I moved across the country for nursing school knowing no one. Brave and impulsive. Dangerous combination," says the man who builds businesses. Taché. They texted until Grace had to sleep before her Monday shift. When she finally said goodnight, she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the afternoon. She barely knew Adrian, but somehow she felt like she had known him forever. The notes had built a foundation, and meeting in person had only strengthened it. Their dinner the next night after Grace's shift was at a 24-hour diner that served breakfast at all hours. Grace ordered pancakes and bacon. Adrian got an omelet and stole half her pancakes. "Tell me something I do not know from the notes," Grace said. "Something real." Adrian set down his fork. "I have been afraid of failing my entire life. My dad built a small delivery company, worked himself to death literally, and left us with nothing but debt. I started my business to prove I could do what he could not. Some days I still feel like I am that scared 24-year-old kid trying to convince suppliers to take a chance on me." Grace reached across the table and took his hand. The note said import/export. "How big are we talking?" "We operate in 15 countries now. Over 200 employees. Revenue last year was around 400 million. Grace blinked. "Oh, does that change things?" "I am processing. That is a lot, I know. It is why I do not usually mention it early on. People treat you differently. Are you actually a billionaire? Be honest." Adrian shifted uncomfortably. "Technically, yes, as of about 8 months ago, but most of it is tied up in the business. I live pretty normally, all things considered. You drive a Mercedes and probably paid more for that sweater than I pay in rent. Okay, normally by billionaire standards." Grace laughed despite the surreal nature of the conversation. "This is insane. I have been flirting with a billionaire in parking garage notes. To be fair, the note started before you knew that. True. You were just the annoying Mercedes owner then. I prefer mysterious and intriguing Mercedes owner. Don't push it." But Grace was smiling, and Adrian was smiling back, and the money thing felt less important than the fact that he had opened up to her. She shared her own fears in return, about whether she was good enough at her job, whether she would ever be able to afford the life she wanted, whether she was wasting time not pursuing her nurse practitioner license immediately. "You are 27, Adrian said. "You have time. And from what you have told me about your patients, you are exactly where you are supposed to be right now. How do you know how old I am? You mentioned your age in one of the notes, when you were talking about your brother." The fact that he remembered that detail from weeks ago made Grace's heart squeeze. They stayed at the diner until almost midnight when Grace had to admit She needed sleep before her shift the next day. Adrian walked her to her car again. This time, when he pulled her close, Grace went willingly. They stood in the parking lot with his arms around her waist and her hands on his chest, looking at each other in the dim light. "I want to kiss you," Adrian said quietly, "but I do not want to rush this." "What if I want you to rush it?" His eyes darkened. "Grace, just kiss me, Adrian." He did. His lips were soft and firm and perfect, and the kiss was gentle at first, then deeper when Grace rose on her toes and pulled him closer. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. "Okay," Adrian said roughly. "That was worth waiting for." Grace could only nod, her ability to form words temporarily offline. They saw each other 5 times over the next 2 weeks. Coffee before Grace's shifts, late dinners after, a Sunday morning breakfast that turned into a walk through the city park. Every moment together felt easy and right, but also charged with an intensity that Grace had never experienced before. Tessa approved wholeheartedly, especially after she ambushed Adrian one evening when he came to pick Grace up. "You hurt her. I know people who can make you disappear," Tessa announced. Adrian took this completely seriously. "Understood. For what it is worth, I have no intention of hurting her, quite the opposite." After he left with Grace, Tessa texted her, "Okay, I take back my true crime concerns. He is perfect, also hot. Good work." But not everything was perfect. Adrian's work schedule was brutal and Grace's was unpredictable. There were nights when he had to cancel because of emergencies with shipments or client meetings. There were days when Grace picked up extra shifts and they could only text. The frustration of wanting to spend time together but struggling to find it wore on both of them. 3 weeks after they met, Grace finally had a weekend off. Adrian rearranged his entire schedule to clear Saturday and Sunday. He picked her up Saturday morning with a backpack and a mysterious smile. "Where are we going?" Grace asked. "It is a surprise. Do you trust me?" "That is a loaded question." "Yes or no, Grace?" She looked at his hopeful expression and made a decision. "Yes." They drove 2 hours north to a lake house that took Grace's breath away. It was all windows and wood, nestled among trees with a private dock extending into crystal blue water. "Adrian, this is gorgeous. My mom owns it. She is visiting my sister in California this week and said we could use it. Separate bedrooms," he added quickly. "No pressure, I just wanted uninterrupted time with you." Grace felt her eyes sting with unexpected tears. "You are really good at this." "At what?" "At making me feel like I matter." Adrian set down their bags and pulled her close. "Grace, you matter more than anything else in my life right now. That probably sounds crazy since we have only known each other a month, but it is true." They spent the weekend cooking together, swimming in the lake, talking for hours on the dock while the sun set. Adrian taught her to paddleboard, and Grace taught him to stop working when his phone buzzed with notifications. They kissed on the couch while rain pattered against the windows. They slept in separate rooms but lingered in doorways saying good night, neither wanting to part. Sunday evening, as they packed to leave, Grace realized she was in love with him. The thought terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. In the car on the way home, Adrian reached over and took her hand. "I need to tell you something." Grace's stomach dropped. Here it came, the catch, the problem. "The reason this was too good to be true." "I am falling in love with you," Adrian said quietly, eyes on the road. "I know it is fast. I know we are still figuring things out, but I needed you to know. You do not have to say anything back. I just could not keep it in anymore." Grace stared at their joined hands. Her heart was racing. "Look at me." Adrian glanced over, vulnerable in a way she had never seen before. "I love you too," Grace said. "It is terrifying and fast and probably crazy, but I love you." Adrian pulled the car over onto the shoulder of the highway, put it in park, and kissed her until they were both dizzy. When he finally pulled back, he was grinning. "Okay," he said. "Okay, that is good." "That is really good," Grace laughed, feeling light and free and happier than she could remember being. "Can we go home now, or are you going to keep stopping the car every time I say something you like?" No promises. They made it home without further stops, but barely. Adrian walked her up to her apartment, and they stood in the hallway kissing until Tessa opened the door. "As much as I support this, the neighbors are complaining. Come in or take it somewhere private." Grace reluctantly pulled away from Adrian. "I should let you go. I will see you Tuesday." "Tuesday, I am off at 6. I will pick you up at 6:15. After Adrian left, Tessa cornered Grace in the kitchen. "You are in love with him." "Yes, he is in love with you." "Yes. This is happening fast, I know." "Are you scared?" Grace considered the question honestly. "A little, but mostly I am just happy." Tessa hugged her. "Good, you deserve this. You deserve someone who looks at you like you hang the moon." The next 6 weeks were a blur of stolen moments and deepening feelings. Grace met Adrian's mother, Eleanor Chase, an elegant woman in her early 60s who clearly adored her son but was also sharp enough to see through any pretense. She grilled Grace over lunch about her intentions and her background, then softened when Grace answered honestly. "My son has dated models and socialites and trust fund babies," Eleanor said. "You are the first one who looks at him like he is a person instead of a bank account." "I did not even know he had money when we started talking," Grace admitted. "I know. That is why I like you." Eleanor patted her hand. "Also, he talks about you constantly. It is annoying and endearing in equal measure." Adrian met Tessa officially, and also Grace's parents via video call since they lived in Arizona. Her mother cried happy tears. Her father asked pointed questions about Adrian's business and intentions. Her younger brother Marcus, fully recovered from his childhood illness and now a college junior, texted her later. "He seems cool, but I will fight him if necessary." Grace introduced Adrian to her coworkers during a hospital charity event. Her friend Jennifer from the pediatric unit pulled her aside. "Grace, he is gorgeous and clearly obsessed with you. What is the catch?" "No catch, just lucky, I guess." "You deserve lucky. You work harder than anyone I know." But luck felt fragile. Grace kept waiting for something to go wrong. When Adrian had to fly to Singapore for a week to handle a supplier crisis, she convinced herself he would meet someone else, or realize long distance was not worth it, or simply forget about her in the whirlwind of his high-powered life. Instead, Adrian called her every day despite the time difference. He sent her photos of the city and complained about jet lag, and told her he missed her so much it physically hurt. When he came home, he came straight from the airport to the hospital and waited in the lobby until her shift ended, rumpled and exhausted and holding flowers. "You did not have to do this," Grace said, though she was already hugging him. "I needed to see you. Needed to know this was real." "What do you mean?" Adrian pulled back to look at her. "I spent the whole week in meetings with people who only care about profit margins and efficiency, and all I could think about was you. How you spend your days making sick kids feel brave. How you light up when you talk about your patients. How you make me want to be a better person. I needed to get back to that, to you." Grace kissed him in the hospital lobby, not caring who saw. "I missed you too, so much. Come home with me tonight, just to sleep," Adrian added quickly. "I just want to hold you." Grace should have said no. She had work in the morning. She needed her own apartment and routine, but she was tired of being cautious. "Okay." Adrian lived in a penthouse downtown that Grace had never seen. The elevator required a key card to access the top floor. When the doors opened directly into his apartment, Grace's breath caught. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. The space was open and modern, all clean lines and expensive furniture, but also surprisingly lived in. Books overflowed from shelves. A coffee mug sat on the counter. Framed photos of Adrian with his mother and sister crowded a side table. "This is your place," Grace said. "You sound surprised." "I expected it to be more sterile. This has personality." Adrian looked pleased. "I spend a lot of time here. It should feel like home." He gave her the tour, ending in his bedroom. Grace tried not to think too hard about the implications of being in Adrian's bedroom, looking at his king-size bed with its navy sheets and the book on his nightstand that she recognized, because she had mentioned loving it in one of her notes. "You bought my favorite book," she said softly. "I bought 3 of your favorite books. They are on the living room shelf." "Adrian." "What?" "I wanted to understand what you love." Grace turned to face him. He looked uncertain, like he was worried he had overstepped. She crossed the space between them and kissed him, pouring 3 months of feeling into it. When she pulled back, they were both breathing hard. "Stay," Adrian said. "Not just tonight. I know it is too soon and I am not asking you to move in. But stay whenever you want. I will give you a key. This can be your space too if you want it." It was too much, too fast. Grace should slow down. But standing in Adrian's bedroom, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes, she found herself nodding. "Okay, yes." They fell asleep tangled together, and Grace slept better than she had in weeks. The next 3 months established a pattern. Grace kept her apartment with Tessa, but spent most nights at Adrian's place. They cooked together, establishing a routine that worked around their chaotic schedules. Adrian learned to make exactly 3 dishes competently. Grace taught him that not everything had to be perfect to be good. They had their first real fight when Adrian missed a dinner with Grace's parents who were visiting from Arizona. He got stuck in back-to-back meetings and did not check his phone until 9, 3 hours after he was supposed to meet them at the restaurant. Grace was cold and quiet when he finally called. "I am so sorry. It completely slipped my mind. We can reschedule." "They leave tomorrow morning, Adrian." "Then I will come to breakfast, early. I will clear my whole morning." "That is not the point." "Then what is the point?" "The point is that you forgot, that your work is more important than meeting the people who matter to me." The silence on the other end stretched long enough that Grace thought they had been disconnected. "You are right," Adrian finally said. "You are absolutely right, and I have no excuse. I am sorry, Grace, truly. I know you work hard. I know your business is important. But I need to know I am important too. You are the most important thing in my life. Then show me, not with flowers or fancy dinners. Just show up." Adrian did show up. To breakfast the next morning, where he charmed Grace's parents and apologized sincerely for missing dinner. To the hospital when Grace had a particularly rough shift and needed someone to hold her while she cried. To Tessa's birthday party at a karaoke bar where he gamely sang terrible 80s songs. To a charity run Grace organized for the pediatric unit, where he not only ran but also convinced 5 of his business contacts to sponsor the event. "You are trying really hard," Grace observed one evening as they walked home from dinner. "Is it working?" "Yes." "But Adrian, I do not need grand gestures. I just need you." "What if I want to give you both?" Grace stopped walking and pulled him into a quiet doorway. "What if I told you I am thinking about moving in with you? Actually moving in, not just staying over most nights." Adrian's eyes widened. "Are you serious? Maybe. Tessa is thinking about moving in with her boyfriend. We would need to give up the apartment anyway, and I basically live at your place already. I want that. I want that so much, but only if you are ready." "I think I am. We can do a trial run first. 1 month, and if it is terrible, I will find my own place." "It will not be terrible." Confident. I know what I want, Grace. I have known since the parking garage notes. They moved in together officially 2 weeks later. Tessa cried happy tears and made Adrian promise to take care of her best friend. Grace's parents called it fast, but did not object, probably because they could see how happy she was. Living together full-time came with adjustments. Grace learned that Adrian was messier than she expected, but also that he would always do the dishes if she cooked. Adrian learned that Grace needed 20 minutes of silence after work shifts to decompress, and that she hoarded blankets like a dragon with treasure. They learned to navigate each other's rhythms, to communicate about little annoyances before they became big ones, to make space for both togetherness and independence. 4 months after Grace moved in, Adrian came home from work looking nervous. Grace was curled on the couch in her scrubs, eating ice cream straight from the container after a 12-hour shift. "Hard day?" Adrian asked, sitting next to her. 3-year-old with leukemia. "She is stable, but it was touch and go for a while." Adrian pulled her close and Grace let herself be held. This was what she loved most about their relationship. The quiet support. The understanding that some days were just hard. "I have something to tell you," Adrian said after a few minutes. "It is good news, but it might complicate things." Grace sat up. "What is it?" "I have been working on expanding the business into South America. It has been in the works for over a year. The deal finally came through. It is huge, Grace. Game-changing for the company." "That is amazing." "It means I will need to be in Brazil a lot over the next 6 months. At least 2 weeks every month, maybe more." Grace felt her stomach sink. "Oh, I want you to come with me, whenever you can. I know you cannot leave your job, but maybe some long weekends. And we can video chat when we are apart. I will fly home as often as possible." Grace wanted to be supportive. This was his dream, his company, but the thought of him being gone half the time made her chest ache. "We will figure it out," she said, because that was what people in love did. The first month of the new arrangement was brutal. Adrian left for Brazil, and the penthouse felt cavernous and empty without him. Grace threw herself into work, picking up extra shifts. They video chatted every day, but it was not the same as falling asleep next to him. When Adrian came home after 2 weeks, they barely made it through the door before they were kissing desperately, reconnecting physically after too much distance. Later, lying in bed, Adrian traced patterns on Grace's bare shoulder. "I hate being away from you," he said quietly. "I hate it too. What if you came with me next time, just for a week? You must have vacation days saved up." Grace did have vacation days. She had been saving them to visit her parents, but maybe this was more important. "Okay, I will talk to my supervisor." Brazil was incredible. Adrian worked during the days, and Grace explored Sao Paulo, soaking in the culture and energy. At night, they ate at tiny local restaurants and danced in clubs and made love in their hotel room with the city lights glowing through the windows. For 1 week, they were just Grace and Adrian, young and in love and free from the weight of normal life. But when they returned home, reality crashed back. Grace picked up the shifts she had missed. Adrian prepared for another trip. The cycle continued. 3 months in, Grace realized she was exhausted. She loved Adrian desperately, but the constant back and forth was wearing her down. She came home from a particularly brutal shift to an empty apartment and broke down crying on the bathroom floor. Tessa, who still had a key, found her there an hour later. "Okay," Tessa said, sitting on the floor next to her. "Talk to me. I do not know if I can do this. The distance, it is killing me." "Have you told Adrian he is building his dream, Tessa?" "I cannot ask him to choose between me and his business." "You are not asking him to choose. You are telling him you are struggling. There is a difference." When Adrian came home 2 days later, Grace was ready. She had rehearsed what to say, how to be honest without being accusatory. "We need to talk," she said as soon as he walked in. Adrian's face went pale. "Those are the 4 worst words in the English language. I am not breaking up with you, but we need to figure this out. The Brazil thing." They sat on the couch and Grace explained everything. How much she missed him, how the empty apartment felt like a physical ache, how she was proud of him but also struggling. Adrian listened without interrupting, his expression growing more troubled with each word. "I have been an idiot," he finally said. "You have not." "I have. I have been so focused on the expansion that I did not stop to consider what it was costing us, costing you. It is your company, your dream. You are my dream, Grace. The company is just work, important work, but still just work. Adrian, I am not asking you to give up Brazil. I know. But I can restructure things. I have been handling too much myself instead of delegating. I have good people in Brazil now. I do not need to be there 2 weeks every month. Maybe 1 week every 6 weeks, and I can do more remotely. Are you sure?" "I am completely sure. I do not want to lose you because I am too stubborn to adjust my schedule. You are more important than any business deal." Grace felt tears slip down her cheeks. "I love you. I love you too, so much. And I am sorry I made you feel like you came second." They worked it out. Adrian delegated more responsibilities to his Brazil team and reduced his travel. When he did have to go, Grace came when she could, and they made the time apart more bearable with daily video calls and countdown calendars like love-struck teenagers. 6 months after the Brazil expansion started, things finally settled into a sustainable rhythm. Grace felt secure again. Adrian seemed happier, less stressed. They talked about the future in concrete terms now, where they wanted to live long-term, whether they wanted kids. What Grace's nurse practitioner program would mean for their schedules. On a Saturday morning in early spring, Adrian woke Grace up early and told her to dress for hiking. "I do not hike," Grace protested. "You do today. Trust me." He drove them to a trail an hour outside the city. The morning was clear and cool, perfect for walking. They climbed for an hour, Adrian leading the way and Grace complaining good-naturedly about the early wake-up call. At the top of the trail, there was a clearing with a breathtaking view of the valley below. Adrian stopped and turned to face Grace. "This is why we came up here, the view." "It is beautiful," Grace agreed. "You are beautiful and patient and kind, and you make me want to be better than I am." "Adrian, what are you doing?" He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Grace's heart stopped. "I know we have only been together officially for 10 months. I know some people will say it is too fast. But I have known since the parking garage notes that I wanted to spend my life with you. You have challenged me and supported me and loved me even when I did not deserve it. You make every day better just by being in it." Adrian dropped to one knee on the trail, opening the box to reveal a stunning diamond ring that caught the morning light. "Grace Palmer, will you marry me?" Grace was crying before he finished the question. "Yes. Yes, of course yes." Adrian stood and slipped the ring onto her finger, then kissed her while the sun rose over the valley and the world felt perfect and right. They got married 4 months later in a small ceremony at the lake house where they had spent their first weekend together. Grace wore a simple white dress that Tessa helped her pick out. Adrian wore a dark suit and could not stop smiling. Eleanor Chase cried. Grace's parents beamed. Marcus gave a speech about how Adrian had passed all his tests and was now officially family. It was small and intimate and exactly what they wanted. No media, no publicity, just the people they loved most celebrating with them. For their honeymoon, they went to Greece for 2 weeks. No work calls, no hospital shifts, just sun and ocean and each other. They explored ancient ruins and ate fresh seafood, and spent hours in their hotel room making love and talking about everything and nothing. "I cannot believe this is my life," Grace said one evening as they watched the sunset over the Aegean Sea. "What do you mean? A year and a half ago, I was just a tired nurse mad about a parking spot. Now I am married to the love of my life in Greece. It feels like a dream." Adrian pulled her close. "It is not a dream, it is real. We are real." When they returned home, real life resumed, but it felt different now. Better. They were partners in the truest sense, navigating life together. Grace started her nurse practitioner program part-time while continuing to work. Adrian restructured his company to allow for more work-life balance, bringing on a co-CEO to share responsibilities. 14 months after their wedding, Grace missed her period. She took 3 pregnancy tests before she believed the results, then waited nervously for Adrian to come home from work. "I have news," she said as soon as he walked in. Adrian's eyes went wide. "Good news or bad news?" "Good news, I think, I hope." "Grace, you are killing me." She handed him the positive pregnancy test. Adrian stared at it for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "Say something," Grace whispered. Adrian looked up and his eyes were wet with tears. "We are having a baby. We are having a baby." He picked her up and spun her around, both of them laughing and crying. When he set her down, he placed his hand gently on her still flat stomach. "Hi, baby. This is your dad. I cannot wait to meet you." Grace's pregnancy was textbook normal. She worked through her first trimester despite brutal morning sickness. Adrian went to every doctor's appointment, asked a million questions, and read every pregnancy book he could find. They found out they were having a girl at 20 weeks and spent hours debating names. "What about Anna?" Adrian suggested. "After my grandmother." "Anna Chase, I like it. What about her middle name?" "What was your grandmother's name?" "Rose." "Anna Rose Chase. That is perfect." Anna Rose Chase arrived 3 days before her due date after 12 hours of labor. She had dark hair like Adrian and Grace's green eyes. Adrian cried when the nurse placed her in his arms. Grace cried watching him fall in love with their daughter. "She is perfect," Adrian whispered. "You are both perfect." Those first few months were exhausting and beautiful. Adrian took paternity leave and was a hands-on father, changing diapers and doing midnight feedings and walking Anna around the apartment when she would not sleep. Grace fell even more in love with him watching him be a dad. When Anna was 4 months old, Grace returned to work part-time. She had completed her nurse practitioner program and was now working reduced hours in a private pediatric clinic, which gave her more flexibility. Adrian had fully transitioned to sharing CEO responsibilities, working from home 2 days a week to be with Anna. They moved out of the penthouse into a house with a yard in a family-friendly neighborhood. It was beautiful but not ostentatious, with enough space for Anna to grow and maybe for future siblings. On their 3rd wedding anniversary, Adrian arranged for his mother to babysit Anna overnight. He took Grace back to the coffee shop where they had first met in person. "Why are we here?" Grace asked, though she was smiling. "Because I wanted to remember where this all started." "Well, it actually started in a parking garage, but that is less romantic." They ordered the same drinks they had ordered that first day. Grace looked at the table where they had sat, remembering how nervous she had been, how right it had felt. "I would do it all again," she said. "Every moment. Even the parking spot drama, especially the parking spot drama. It brought me to you." Adrian reached across the table and took her hand. "I wrote you something. A note, like the old days." He pulled a folded piece of expensive cardstock from his pocket. Grace recognized it as the same kind he had used for their parking garage correspondence. She opened it with shaking hands. "Dear G, 3 years ago, I stole your parking spot and accidentally found the love of my life. You were supposed to be angry at me forever. Instead, you gave me a chance. You saw past the money and the business and the intensity to the person underneath. You loved me when I was difficult. You challenged me to be better. You gave me our daughter. You gave me a life I never dreamed I could have. I am the luckiest man in the world, not because I am a billionaire, but because I am yours. Forever grateful for parking spot drama and everything that came after. All my love, eh? Grace was crying by the time she finished reading. Adrian, too much. It is perfect. You are perfect. I am really not, but I am perfect for you. Grace leaned across the table and kissed him, tasting coffee and love and 3 years of memories. They went home to their daughter and their house and their beautifully imperfect life. Anna was sleeping soundly, and Alina left with a knowing smile. Grace and Adrian stood over their daughter's crib, watching her breathe, marveling at what they had created together. "Thank you," Grace whispered. "For what? For stealing my parking spot, for the notes, for choosing me every single day." "Always," Adrian promised, "until the end of time." And he kept that promise. Through the chaos of raising Anna and later her younger brother Jack, born 2 years later. Through Grace's promotion to head nurse practitioner at her clinic. Through Adrian's company going public and the whirlwind that followed. Through moves and milestones and ordinary days that turned out to be extraordinary simply because they faced them together. Years later, when Anna was 12 and curious about how her parents met, Grace told her about the parking spot and the notes and the coffee shop meeting. "That is the most romantic thing I have ever heard," Anna declared. "You should write it down." "Maybe someday," Grace said. But she did not need to write it down. Every detail was burned into her memory. The frustration of circling the garage, the first note on her windshield, the nervous anticipation of meeting Adrian in person, the moment she knew she loved him, the proposal on the hiking trail, the wedding at the lake house, Anna's birth, Jack's arrival, every perfect and imperfect moment of building a life together. The parking spot that had caused so much frustration had given her everything. It had given her Adrian. It had given her a love she never knew she was looking for, but could not imagine living without. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the kids were asleep and they had the house to themselves, Adrian would leave little notes around the apartment. On her pillow, tucked into her lunch bag, stuck to the bathroom mirror, "Still my favorite person. A thanks for keeping me. A lucky me." Grace kept every single one, stored in a box in her closet alongside the original parking garage notes that had started everything. They were a reminder that love could begin in the most unexpected places. That frustration could turn to connection. That sometimes the best things in life started with someone stealing your parking spot and having the audacity to leave you a note about it. Grace Palmer had found her happily ever after in the last place she expected. And every single day, she thanked the universe for that annoying Mercedes and the billionaire who drove it straight into her life.